All right. Well, thank you all for being here. This is the Salt and Pepper Talks, a history of one of the first districts in the United States to desegregate without a court order. The story takes place in Sausalito and Marin City, California. The origins of the desegregation effort started during the Second World War with a California Supreme Court case that desegregated the shipbuilding unions. 20 years later, the two communities would come together again to try to integrate their school system. Between 1965 and 1970, desegregation would be the central point of contention in the area. In 1964, liberal, wealthy white Sausalito residents connected with the African-American community in neighboring Marin City, many of whom still lived in the temporary shipyard housing built in World War II. They formed a political alliance to elect a liberal majority onto the school board, with the board creating a desegregation plan in under 30 days. The children of white and black families represented what would be the first time the two communities would be interacting since the integrated Marin shipyards during the Second World War. Leaders in the district believed simply placing black and white students into the same classroom would create an integrated community. However, the events surrounding 1965 with the Watts riots, the March in Selma, repeal of fair housing in California with Prop 14, and the formation of the Black Panther Party trickled down into the classroom. One successful attempt at ending school violence was a student-led discussion group called the Salt and Pepper Talks, ran by a student after a child was thrown off a balcony at Tamalpais High School. Another source of peace within the district came with Sidney F Walton Jr., a Black Panther who was hired as principal at the only junior high in the district. Student violence was reduced, but his radical changes to the school, like teaching Swahili, giving out Mao's Little Red Book, and forming one of the first Black Panther breakfast programs, meant that Walton only lasted 1 year before he was fired and the liberal school board was recalled. The varied experience of desegregation in Sausalito represents a civil rights story out in the West, a region seldomly associated with civil rights struggles. By 1970, the district had become segregated again with white flight. 50 years later, in 2019, the district received a court order from the California Attorney General to desegregate, once more making history and receiving one of the most recent desegregation orders in the 21st century. I will end with a 3-minute collection of oral histories from 25 interviews with students, parents, and teachers that I conducted last summer. Thank you for your time.
Well, I remember the first day of fourth grade, and I don't remember registering that the class was like a third Black, but it was. But what I do remember, like it was yesterday, was just being completely blown away by the way the Black kids acted, swearing at the teacher, saying no, talking back, which we never did. And I'd never seen it happen before. And then it culminated with a Black kid picking up a chair and throwing it at the teacher, which just, I mean, it was, I don't know how to explain how shocking that was. I guess it was like seeing a car accident or seeing a dead body for the first time. You just couldn't be in that.
Than others. I think it was great for us that they were teaching about, say, African countries. So we studied Liberia, someone else studied Ghana. We all had very affirming assemblies. We all dressed up, we did the textiles, we learned the history, and we learned positive things about different African countries. The Black Panthers came into school from 2nd through 4th grade. We danced in the noon room, we chanted things, we chanted free Huey Newton, I'm Black, I'm proud, say it loud. We did a lot of affirming chants, and it was very positive.
And it was just wild, just really chaos. And I remember the Black Panthers that year, and they came in, and they would actually come into the classroom, unannounced, and we would all have to stand up and pump our fists and scream Black Power and Right On and White or Black. And they had a Black Panther breakfast, which white kids were not allowed to go to. I mean, we would come on campus and it was just no.
For me, it was sort of a mind-opening thing at a mind-opening time. And the background of fear and the lack of, if you take a bunch of kids and you put them in a high-performing academic environment, they're mostly going to perform better academically than if you don't. This was not a high-performing academic environment.
Well, I had good experience with it because when I went to the Manzanita school, and this is your first time going to school, I knew most of the kids that were going there already because the community was so small.
Because we all have some sort of prejudice or some sort of bias. All of us do. And if you say you don't, you're a liar. And I spent all my life trying to get over my bias.
I think in theory, this whole program had been worked on paper and whatever, but to actually have time for teachers to meet together, for kids, I mean, there was like no orientation.
As I was walking this kid up to my house in Mill Valley, several people, kind of looked, and we could hear these things that I kind of tried to ignore. But I heard somebody saying, "Look at the little Negro," and I looked around, it was this girl. I said, "Hey, shut up. It's my friend."
All right, so that gives us just about 6 minutes for questions. So I'm ready whenever you all are.